Hi, everybody. The time is 12:03, and I'm sitting in the beautiful new convention center in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, sending you the best Christmas wish. We have a beautiful tree in the background. And today we have some really exciting stories to share with everybody. Without any further ado, we will start the process. Every storyteller has about 8 minutes to provide some key points, and then we save plenty of time at the end for Q&A, and I will facilitate the Q&A. I'm Kathleen Liang from North Carolina A&T. If you have any question in the middle of the presentation or story, please feel free to type your questions into the chat box, and then we will come back to review the chat box after everybody finishes the story. All right. And the session is recorded. If you missed something, we can always go back to review. All right. So let's start. Our first storyteller is our wonderful Mary Ahearn. And Mary has a really long history of all kinds of jobs she does. So Mary, if you're ready, the time is yours.
Yes, I am ready. Thank you, Kathleen. And I'm really looking forward to this session, hearing about my co-presenters and the discussion. Kathleen was very kind to say I have a long history. I think that might be code for old, older. So when I thought about how to present something in 8 minutes, I went back to the blog that was sent out, and I sort of focused on this. Where you started in life should not define where you end up, from the part 1 of this series. And that just, of course, has a lot of appeal. But then I started thinking about, well, is that true? I started thinking about Thomas Piketty and Raj Chetty's work on income inequality and geography of intergenerational mobility, and said, well, maybe the emphasis should be on should, not define where you end up. It certainly plays a role, though. And I think when I think about my own path and Kathleen's and others, boy, the journey has been varied. So I just have a few slides that I'll talk from, but on the first one, I wanted to, go back to this life's journey and talk about the importance of core values, because where you do start out in life, I think, has a big impact. And why that is because, that's the place where you're learning your core values. So I wanted to begin by talking about those core values that you get from your parents and your school and your early childhood. On the next slide, I just sort of, I'm talking about the importance of the core values. What are they? I think we all know what they are, but they color all aspects of our life, and they don't often change. But I think as we age and we get wiser, we do hone in on them. And certainly through my career, through the challenges and obstacles, my core values have actually, just been made stronger. And so just like briefly about my past, I came from a large family. I'm one of 6, Catholic family. My father was killed when my mother was pregnant with my youngest brother. So I had this role model of a strong single mom. And then from the Catholic community, I got just more strength in the community and some really important core values, I think. And things like, people who don't, I'll give an example. People who aren't familiar with the Catholic community, there's a big emphasis on confession. And what that means is you're reflecting on your behavior all the time. And I think that's, that really kind of plays into things. I'll also sort of briefly talk about, as I've gotten older, I've realized, boy, my mother she lived that. She's very religious. I'm not anymore so much. But as I grew older, I realized her father was really a racist. He was in Kansas City. Our whole life was spent in Fort Lauderdale. And I often reflect on how she left that all behind, because none of that was transferred to us. I think so even though I say you're raised with core values, sometimes you're challenged by those. And in my mother's case, who's still alive, 100 years old, it's her Catholic faith that had challenged those. So to say family is important, I'm bringing this up because one of the questions was work-life balance. That's true for everyone. It's almost a cliche. For me personally, and there's no right or wrong here, children were always in the picture. I knew that I always wanted to have children, and that was just paramount. So work was secondary, and you just made the balance work. When I was breastfeeding, I took my babies to meetings. My mother or a friend or somebody would come and help me with that. So it's through the power of these networks and loved ones that you manage it. At the time, there was something called a mommy track. So people were saying you had to, not have a fulfilling career if you had children, and a lot of guilting, think Phyllis Schlafly, and maybe you don't remember her, and that's a good thing. But there was a lot of guilting of working women. I didn't really feel that so much. Like an example, even women, very nice women who went off to the Council of Economic Advisors for a year. And when I was thinking about doing that, I asked her, she says, "Oh no, you can't do that." Because she had a support system that took care of her children, and I had a working husband. So even there, you got messages like that all the time. So in terms of an overview, hopefully I have a couple minutes left. In terms of, I grew up in Fort Lauderdale in a city, didn't know anything about agriculture. I don't have generations. You have to go back to Ireland and Germany in the early 1800s to give me a farm background. And I'd say the importance was of role models and mentors and support systems, and finding something that connects you to your core values. So I got my undergraduate at University of Florida, and there I had this eye-opening realization that, there's world hunger. We have environmental problems, and University of Florida's Food and Resource Economics offered that as one of their tracks undergraduate. So that was great. And then in Penn State, I was attracted to the fact that there was joint with the rural sociology department. And I started working on rural health with Sam Cordes, who was a great mentor. And then went to work with the master's at Economic Research Service. And there I sort of say, including USDA Child Care Center. So what I did there was I started connecting with women's groups, because back then, again, women ag economists were few and far between. And so I was motivated, not married or have kids or anything, when I saw my colleagues, to see how they were having to dealing with their kids. And so I put together a report on why USDA needed a child care center. So it's those sorts of things that helped me feel like I had a home, that I was doing what I wanted. I then realized I liked research and I liked public policy. So I went to Oregon State for my PhD while still working for ERS. And I was associated with the Rural Development Center there, which again was a great experience. Not any women faculty, but some of my best friends still came from those graduate days. And I'm sure that's true for many listening. And then I went back to ERS. when I went back, again, I put in the comment here that I was an EO counselor for 20% of my time. And that was a real eye-opener experience in terms of learning the system and seeing the problems in the workplace. And then I retired from ERS in 2014. And since then, I've been a consultant for the Farm Bureau, for FAO. Past year and a half, I'm back contracting with ERS as they rebuild from the transfer to the Kansas City. I'm back to help them, and associated with several other organizations. If I think about the joys of my career, it's not the resume, it's not the publications, even though I'm proud of those, but it's the public service aspect of it has always been what is driving my career. And the most satisfaction because of that I have gotten is from building the economic systems for agriculture, the data collection systems. And it doesn't necessarily bring recognition because it's not a line item on your resume, but it brings a great deal of personal satisfaction. It's changed the way we recognize the financial position of farmers and farm households. And so that has really been the greatest source of satisfaction.
Mary, your time is up.
Okay.
It's okay if we save
no problem.
Time for other folks to talk about their stories, and then we can come back to visit with you.
Sounds good.
I think you covered plenty in the last 2 slides too. You actually talked in that one slide. All right. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Kenrett, you're next. You're ready? And Kenrett, could you just let me know next slide so I know time to switch?
Okay, you can go ahead and move to the next slide. Thank you, Mary, for that beautiful story. You just don't know. You've inspired me so much over the years, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Kathleen, for inviting me to do this. At first, I was a little hesitant because I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. But it gave me an opportunity to just reflect, and I appreciate it. It seems like just yesterday, I started this role as department chair at North Carolina A&T. Didn't know what I was getting into, but I had the faith that I would do well. And I was just thinking about what Mary said about this journey and how, where we start doesn't define where we end up. And I was thinking back to high school when I was this shy, quiet, young lady. And, I always did well in my math and science courses, but never really pushed myself out there. So we were in an assembly one day, and the principal was, announcing awards for different people. And she called my name, but I didn't expect to get anything. I was sitting in the back of the auditorium and I was talking with my friends, and I heard my name and I said, no, she didn't call my name. So everyone around me said, yes, she's calling your name. And so I walked down to the front and she said, you are the recipient of the I Dare You Award. And I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but William Danforth, I think, started that award. And he was inspirational in starting, I know he was the CEO of Ralston Purina at one time. And he was actually encouraging youth to just be service-oriented and leaders in the community. And when I realized that people around me saw more in me than I saw in myself, then it made a huge difference. And so thank you so much, because I get to connect. That was the first time in my life where someone identified me as a leader. So now I can fast forward and look and say, oh, this didn't happen overnight. This has been a journey. And I'm happy to be able to share my experience with you. So Kathleen said we only had 8 slides. So I wanted to talk about what I do here, because she said a lot of people don't know what we go through. So it's important that I share with you what we do. I also want to share my leadership style and values, the mission areas and vision. I omitted the organizational structure because I know I'm limited with time, but I want to also talk about strategic action and tactical planning that we do, and just a week and a day in my life. So my roles and responsibilities are core to the land grant mission: academics, research, and service. But what people don't understand is that these other 3 areas, budget management and fundraising, personnel, recruitment and retention, take a lot of your time. Next slide. So in balancing all of this, I had to understand what is my leadership style. And I've been participating in a lot of leadership programs, and I've done a lot of assessments, and these were the top 3 actually, that I have an altruistic leadership style. And what that means is that I look at the strengths and weaknesses of the individual and then see how that plays a role in the overall goal and focus of the department. Another area is democratic. I remember when I first came on, we needed to develop an action plan for the department, and immediately I asked for feedback. And we were in the middle of COVID, or at the beginning of COVID, didn't know how I was going to get this information. So we automatically did a survey, and it seems like the faculty appreciated it. They were highly responsive. We got really good feedback, and it helped us to develop our focus areas for the next 5 years. Coaching is another area that I love. I love working with students. I love coaching them through the thesis projects and all of that good stuff. Even though I'm department chair, I still serve as a faculty member. So I advise students with their graduate work. I work in the classrooms. I advise undergraduate students, and I also advise junior faculty members. I walk them through this journey, and senior faculty as well, anything I can do to help. And so those are my 3 styles. But all of that means nothing if we don't understand our values. So I know that in order to lead, I have to lead by example. So I place a high level of emphasis on integrity and fairness and showing compassion to others, as well as having a firm grip on organization and keeping a calm temperament, and focusing on myself developing, because if I don't develop myself, then I can't encourage others to develop. And I also place an emphasis on their development. And not only that, but just persevering, because, you know, you all are familiar with the struggles that we have in terms of capacity building and lack of critical mass at the 1890 institutions. But I don't want that to limit me. I still work hard. I still try to rise above whatever issues that we are facing, no matter what the circumstance. Next slide. So again, our focus, that's important. When you have so many different things coming at you as a department chair, at the end of the day, this is the focus of what we do: academics, research, and service. Next slide. So I mentioned to you all the democratic style implementation of soliciting information from our faculty. Well, once I got the feedback, I laid out our 5 years in these 3 areas. I said, well, the first couple of years, we're just going to focus on ourselves. We're going to focus on our professional development, focus on students, staff, faculty, and that's what we did. We created a leadership series and a speaker series for our faculty and staff, as well as lunch and learn series for our students. And we invite different speakers to come in and talk about different topics, just to educate ourselves. And then the second and third year, our focus has been or is recruitment and retention, faculty scholarship, and strengthening academic programs. Now, you all know that we still have to do all of these things across the board, but I realized that in doing this job, we still have to have focus. And so this is our focus for this third year that we're going in, as well as looking ahead to our fourth and fifth year. But we are focusing on productivity and efficiency. And then our last 4 and 5 years of our action plan, we're focusing on our stakeholders. Next slide.
Kenrett, can you wrap up in 1 minute? Thank you.
Gotcha. And so my last slide is to focus on, or just to share with you, how does she organize herself? How does she do all of this? So I look at my week in this way. I say, well, all these meetings. So Mondays are meeting Mondays. Tuesdays are teaching Tuesdays, as well as Thursdays. Wednesdays are for research. And then Fridays, the catch-up day. So I don't know if this helps you if you are considering becoming a department chair or not, but it definitely helps me because, again, you have all this stuff going on, but focus is important. So I wanted to show you a snapshot of my priorities for a specific day in my life. And this is just an example of November 22nd. I had administrative meetings. I have research projects I have to organize. I have a recruitment and retention planning effort I'm doing. Look at personnel updates, look at our budgets, look at my planner task completions, time approvals, signatures, and all of that. So just to kind of share with you a day and a week in my life. And next slide. Thank you. And I look forward to hearing my fellow colleagues' presentations.
Thank you, Kenrett. It's a very interesting to see how the department chair works. You probably scared of a few folks thinking about it. And that's just only one day. Okay, so we'll come back to Kenrett for more questions and comments. Now, next we are moving on to Dr. Michael Gunderson, and he is from the industry. Michael, you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Kathleen, and thanks for letting me participate in this discussion. I think I'll just, sort of at the outset note that I'm probably not one that's often, left out or excluded, and I probably haven't had those challenges. But I think part of the reason Kathleen hopefully invited me here, and hopefully I can add to the conversation about diverse voices, is I feel like as a first-generation college student, I didn't always feel like I was part of an inclusive environment. And I think, I can't find the tweet anymore, but an ag economist tweeted out just how underrepresented first-generation college students are in faculty across the entire university system, but in economics and ag econ in particular, first-generation college students tend to be underrepresented. So I did want to take just the 8 minutes that I have to think about what were those challenges for a first-generation college student, and what did that mean in terms of my career as an academic and then joining industry to try and build a more inclusive environment for students like me. I probably have a couple of dozen cousins like Mary. I'm from a big family. And I think out of that couple dozen cousins, I'm the only one that lives farther than an hour drive from my grandparents on both sides of my family. And that's great. In many ways, I'm very jealous of them. And especially now that we have young kids, I'm really jealous because the cousins are together and they're having a good time. But it did pose a challenge. I think there was, a certain level of concern about me moving far away from home and going to the university. And, questions about how would you pay for that, and questions about, how are you going to be able to navigate that. And my mom was always supportive. She was always encouraging us to go to college, but her ability to really support me sort of stopped at that encouragement. She didn't know about, picking a major and signing up for classes, and how are you going to pay for the university, and how do you choose your housing situation, and those kinds of things. And I think it was a challenge for me to really get there and to feel like I was included. One thing that did help certainly was being in a college of agriculture. I felt like all my time as a student, as a grad student, as a faculty member, colleges of agriculture tend to be able to welcome folks more completely. Now, I know that's not a universally shared experience. I know people don't feel like colleges of agriculture always are inclusive. And so I think, that was something that was important for me to work on, both in my academic and in my industry career. So, I think one of the biggest challenges was selecting a major. My grandparents had livestock. We grew up with livestock around, and so their expectation was Mike was going to 4 years in college. But on the other side, and we're going to get some free veterinary care for the animals. And I think it wasn't really till I got to the University of Illinois and Lyle Fettig was there, and he really took the time at orientation to help me think about a major and what that means, and what that sets you up for in terms of future success. And I think, I think sometimes both at Florida when I was a faculty member and at Purdue, faculty weren't always involved in those summer orientation sessions for new students. And I think that's unfortunate, because it was a faculty member for me that influenced my decision to join Ag Econ and then become an ag economist ultimately. So, I do remember comments about applying to college and then getting accepted. How are you going to be able to afford that? How do you expect us to be able to pay for that? And we were from pretty humble socioeconomic status. I didn't go hungry or anything, but certainly the thought of spending tuition, and even, it's not as bad as it is now in terms of tuition dollars, but even then, it seemed like an insurmountable mountain for my parents. And so navigating something like the FAFSA really required me to sort of do it independently and work with the guidance counselors and things to help you with that. So it was the first time I'd ever asked my parents how much money they made. And I think that's just a different kind of environment than a lot of students who grow up in a family that has degrees from a higher institute of higher education. There's maybe not the same level of taboo around finances for some of us. So the other thing I'll say, getting to the university, for my family, when they think about the university or a university, the first thing they think about is sports. I think that's what the university is to them in their mind. And maybe secondarily is the teaching mission of the college. And I think even though we were in agriculture and even though we used the extension system, I don't think that would have been up in their minds about what a university does. And certainly they would not have, thought about research or discovery as a part of a university or as a priority. And so I think, I had to be introduced to the land grant mission when I got to the university, and certainly had to get introduced to the concept of graduate school. And what would you do other than become a doctor or a lawyer or a veterinarian? Why would you stay at the university after earning an undergraduate degree? And a huge influence in that regard was Sally Thompson. Most of the folks here on this call know Sally Thompson, who was at University of Illinois, became a department head at Purdue. And after my freshman year, Sally was assigned my advisor, and that was very serendipitous for me because she really saw the potential in me in terms of graduate study and an academic career. And she was the one that said, hey, think about graduate school, think about applying. There are some additional resources for you if you do. And she was such a cheerleader. And I said to Sally, I think I'm going to apply to grad school, but maybe just here at Illinois. And Sally was like, no, Mike, you've done the Illinois experience. You've done what you can here. You've got to go get another perspective, a place to be. And so it was really great that she pushed me out to Cornell and eventually brought me back to Purdue. But that was a huge thing. And I hope, I know to some extent, some of the academic advising has shifted away from faculty and it's on the professional advising staff. And our professional advising staff at Purdue are literally the best. They're amazing. And when I was at Florida, they're great too. But that faculty connection is really a huge thing to help folks understand the broader universe and the broader land grant mission a lot of our universities deliver on. So really appreciated that faculty connection. I think get into grad school, think about that experience. I think folks that maybe grow up around college-educated families sort of publish or perish is so cliche and it's so obvious. And I think what was really a big transition for me in terms of into grad school and into becoming a faculty, the idea that teaching maybe, for folks from a first-generation college student, you'd think the only thing a faculty member gets evaluated on is teaching, and to realize that publishing and having an impact by putting material out there in extension is a broader challenge. And so while I was pretty excited to be a faculty member because the opportunity to be on a campus, interact with students, it really was an eye-opening for me what it meant to be a good faculty member and to have one with a commitment to the land grant mission. And I don't know if it would have changed my path any, but it certainly would have been helpful to maybe have that perspective as a freshman in college, a first-generation college student. The last thing I'll note, because some people are curious about it, the shift from academia to industry is probably, at least in our association, a bit unusual. I would say that that has been a good transition for me and for my family. I will tell you that being a university professor is literally the best job on the planet. There's no doubt about it, and I loved it. But I was also ready for a little bit of a different challenge. And MetLife Investment Management probably sounds like a life insurance company to you because they are, but we also are the largest agricultural lender in the country that's not government backed. So we have a $20 billion portfolio of ag mortgages. And I'm able to use the same skill set that I did as an academic to have an impact there. So it's been a lot of fun, and I certainly, will save some time for some questions if folks are more interested in that part of it. But thanks for having me, Kathleen, and hear from our last speaker.
Thank you so much, Michael. Michael is such a good trooper. He serves on the mentoring committee with AAEA. He had participated on a career day for AAEA workshops. I mean, anything he could engage, I think he is using himself as a good role model to inspire others and just try different paths sometimes. Thank you so much. We'll definitely come back with you for more questions. Now, the last but not the least is my excellent coworker again from A&T. I really appreciate my colleagues at A&T. I just started grabbing people to tell stories, and they look at me. They say, "Oh, gee, here comes Kathleen." But Luba happily accepted, and Kenrett happily accepted. So, Luba, it's your time now. I know you will just talk. You don't have slides, but this is your time, Luba, please.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I don't have slides. I do have them, but I understand it's hard to share them that late.
Do you have slides? You want to be a co-host and run your slides? That's absolutely
That would be
fine.
great. That would be great. Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, Jessica, would you just please assign Luba as a co-host? And while we're Jessica, just let us know when you're ready, or Luba, you should see if you're ready, right? Can you see?
Okay, can you see my first slide?
Absolutely.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for being so flexible. Yes, Luba Kurkalova, that's me. Okay, I pushed the wrong button. Okay, here we go. Thank you. Thank you, Mary, Kenrett, Michael, sharing your stories. My story is somewhat differently, started in a different part of the world. I'm Russian who grew up in Tajikistan. That's a country that is a former Soviet Union country that borders Afghanistan, so just north of Afghanistan. I came to the US with degrees in mathematics. Mathematics always helps. So it was applied math, both my undergrad and my first graduate degree. And I came here already an adult married with one daughter. And then since '92, it's been quite a journey. I got to Iowa State, PhD program in agricultural economics. Agriculture happened to be just by accident. I was looking for economics. It turned out that Iowa State is strong in agricultural economics. I went for it. I don't have a picture, a photo of myself on this slide. That's a courtesy of my graphic designer daughter. That's her depiction of our family. Then I stayed at Iowa State upon graduation, got a sort of in a postdoc position in CART, and then went on with faculty jobs, and my second job started here some 15 years ago, almost 15 years ago at A&T. Along the way, we added one more daughter to the family, and now I am a proud grandma of one. So what I wanted to talk is just summarized on this slide. I was thinking about sort of more along the line of lessons learned about diversity, about the impact diversity and what diversity meant in my life, in this professional development. So when I came to the US, I thought I was coming from a very diverse place. Tajikistan, again, not very much on the news, maybe a bit more now, but being so far south in the former Soviet Union, it happened to be a very diverse environment. De facto, it was a destination for many ethnic groups who were considered to be less than perfect citizens under the Soviet rule. So I grew up surrounded by ethnic Germans, Korean, Ashkenazi Jews, you name it, just absolutely very diverse environment. Interestingly, when we think about diversity and inclusion nowadays in the US context, one is about gender diversity and sort of professional opportunities for women. And for a while, once I came to the US, I couldn't figure out what we're talking about. Why do we have to advance girls? Come on, just take the test, get into the university, and that's it. And later I realized it was just probably a specific part of the Soviet system. My mom got a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering in 1952. Were there many girls in her program? Absolutely not. But could the girls be admitted into program if they passed the test? Absolutely yes. And only later I realized that it was not the case for most women in the US. Some time ago in The Economist, I read obituary of Vera Rubin. I didn't know about her. She was apparently American astronomer who pioneered work on galaxy rotation rates. And for her contribution to science, for a while, she was posed to receive a Nobel Prize in physics. It didn't happen. She passed away in 2016, I think. But when reading her obituary, I read that in 1960s, she was denied admission to Princeton because she was a woman. So that sort of put the two things together for me. My mom, who had engineering degree, and somebody who was that knowledgeable and capable and wasn't able to get into higher education opportunities. So once I got to the US, so this social environment brought in very different perspective. And I want to talk about one thing that sort of thinking about this presentation, what helped me and what I think is needed to be promoted one way or another if we want to be serious about cultural and ethnical and gender diversity and overall diversity in the profession. What happened to be important to me was importance of social belongingness, finding that I belong to the group. Couple examples from Iowa State. Iowa State had a Russian-speaking student association. And at the time when I was leaving Iowa State, it had over 500 members, 500 Russian speakers. So what were we doing in this association? How was it helping us professionally? Well, for most of us, it was a huge shock. We changed countries, we changed language, we changed cultures. And we were doing what we were doing, graduate students or maybe professionals, there were faculty members there as well. So what was the importance of this organization? Well, we were comparing notes. We were sharing experience on how we fit in this new professional environment that was so different for many of us, for all of us. Another thing that again helped me along the way professionally is that I had tremendous female role models and advisors. Being a mother, by the time I entered grad school, that brings certain challenges. Being a married mother, that's another challenge. And so altogether, I was looking for role models and I found them. And then I saw Helen's name, Helen Jensen's name on the list of listeners, Helen High. These were the great people who helped me along the way. Just a couple names here on my slides: Maureen Kilkenny, Helen Jensen, Kathy Kling. Not to diminish the role of my male advisors, it's just that helped me get into the profession, become who I am right now, eased my way into profession. And then another thing that I also want to talk about is communities of faith. That was very interesting, Mary. When you started your talk, you mentioned that how important it was to you. I'm not a religious person, but I found that it's very interesting social phenomenon in the US, and especially in the South. Again, it's not a very scientific observation. For the US, I have 2 data points. I have Midwest, about a dozen years, mostly in Iowa, and I have almost 15 years in the South. So by no means it's a complete social investigation or research point. But what was interesting for me to discover is how different is the role of communities of faith in the society in supporting people. In the US, again, I was coming from the Soviet Union compared to some other places. For example, a friend of mine made an observation. She said that when I go to church in Russia, I'm going there to seek solitude. When I go to church in the US, I go there to find social interactions. That's a very interesting observation. It's definitely not all what church or other communities of faith are bringing, but that's important. That's very important. And I have seen it in my students, how important it is, this sense of belonging. For example, just recently, I advised an undergraduate student who had an opportunity to apply to a very good job. They're graduating with undergraduate degrees, and so very good job, but the job is outside of the South, whatever way you define South. And their concern was, will I be able to find a church there? And I understand what they're asking now. I understand what it means. They're concerned whether they will be able to find the social group outside of work that will be accepting of them. And that intertwined relationship between communities of faith and sort of people's well-being, and which is extremely important for advancing diversity, whatever way we think about this. I think that needs to be understood. Another example that resonated with me was when I was watching the movie Hidden Figures. I really like that movie for multiple reasons. But it's for those of you who might have not seen it, it's a story of African-American NASA mathematicians. It's about Katherine Johnson mostly and two other women. So anyway, in that movie, where does Katherine Johnson find her husband? At a church picnic. That's a part of the life. That's so much in the whole social network of people. And again, here in the South, it has been much more pronounced. And I think that's something that has to be taken into account, thought about when we think about advancing diversity in the profession. Because we're human beings, we cannot exist outside of society. And when we think about advancing our opportunities, this social belongingness is a big part of that. If we're comfortable in our social life, then we can do all we want to do with our professional development. And so I thought that might be probably a take-home message from my story. And I'll actually stop here.
Luba, you're perfect. I was going to call you. That's all right. But coming back quickly, if you stop sharing your screen, we can all see each other. That's fantastic. There are two quick questions in the chat box I want to call to your attention. One question is about for each one of you now, short and sweet answer, okay? No long essay here, okay? Short and sweet answer from each one of you. What is the key choice in your career that actually drives you to this career path? Who is going to start? What's the key choice that drives you and make you successful in your career path?
So Kathleen, I can answer that quickly.
Yeah.
So for me, it was after I finished my PhD at Oregon State. They were recruiting me at one of the land grants. And so I was sort of like, oh, you know, I really considered it long and hard. And now I wonder, since Mike said it's the best place to be is a faculty position, but I decided, you know, no, I really liked being close to public policy, contributing. So that would have changed really my whole career had I pursued an academic compared to government policy analysis.
Great. Michael, you have a key choice here?
Well, I you know, it's maybe cheating on Dawn's question, but Sally Thompson did me to go and study somewhere else. And at the time, I probably could have chosen to stay at Illinois, and really making that choice to go to Cornell, to be in a different environment, to be in a different academic institution, it really did change my trajectory. I was much more open, much more thoughtful after that experience. And so I think it certainly is in part because of Sally's encouragement, but it ultimately was my choice. And I do think it's the one that had a big influence on my life.
Great. How about Luba and the Kenrett? You don't have to respond if you are still thinking about it.
My key choice probably was to go to grad school, period, to grad school. I knew I wanted to solve puzzles. I always loved solving puzzles, and that's how it felt. This is where I will learn to solve even more puzzles.
Right.
Patricia Miente, my advisor at Southern University, was the epitome of what I wanted. She was a smart, well-spoken, just phenomenal woman, and she inspired me to give everything she gave to me to young people of color. And so that's why I'm here, and that is my key choice.
Thank you. Another question, it's an interesting question. Again, short and sweet as you think. A colleague asked about the people who you have mentored. How have the people you mentored, not your mentors, it's the people you have mentors that shaped your thinking in diversity, inclusiveness, and this other perspective?
Kathleen, I saw that one, and I feel like I have a pretty good short answer. And I'll say it's the importance of allyship, right? Especially for somebody of my gender and my race. You know, it's important for me to be not just supportive, but to be a vocal and visible ally. And I think about our peers in the LGBTQ community. A lot of students are challenged with that. And at Purdue, you could go to a training and then outside your office door, you could post visibly that you're an ally of the LGBTQ community. And I think for me, I began to understand the importance of that from students that I was mentoring and working with, why that was so valuable to them.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else?
So Kathleen, I'll chime in here. It's the excitement of the next generation, just seeing the potential has really been an exciting experience, and just seeing how much talent is there.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else?
I think it's the very often I got surprised at how I thought I knew almost everything there is to learn, and then yet I learned something else. I learned something new, and that excitement I think stays, and it's like, wow, okay, now I know that part, and so I could improve, hopefully, or apply later on. That part is, I guess, has been the most rewarding in terms of advice.
Thanks, Luba. Kenrett, you have a few words?
So I think, just by, just the nature of what I do, I hope to inspire. I hope I inspire young people of color to even want to go into agricultural and applied economics, and definitely graduate school, within the industry, whatever. So that's how it shapes me, to see more representation.
Thank you. Now here comes an interesting question. People ask you, can you think of one situation in your job that you said a yes to do something, but it has a little impact? Anyone has any example or any experience?
I would like to answer this. So that could have been a whole lot of stuff, right? But I realized that every single thing has come together in some way where I may have benefited from it on the other side. So I just say, hang in there. If it may not feel right, but it definitely is going to shape you either in a positive way, or it's going to inform you in a way that this is not where you need to go.
Thanks,
I think
Kenrett.
that's a great answer from Kenrett, and I think that's the approach I always take. Is regret is probably too strong a word, but man, if you treat every opportunity as a learning opportunity and you learn from that and you get better going forward, I doubt that you're going to have that experience where you truly regret it. You might have done it differently, you might have changed it looking back, but you probably don't regret it.
Yeah, I second. Yeah, turning it into learning opportunity as time consuming, as difficult and regretful the experience might seem at that moment, or at least I learned something about organization of the university, of reasoning behind certain policies in the university. I sat on too many committees. Yeah, I totally agree that once you start thinking about this at the end, that this was a learning opportunity, then it's easier to think about this.
We learn to say no from those scenarios. So you won't say yes again next time, right? Look at everybody laughing about that. You all agree with me. I know that. All right. I think there's a question for Mary. Mary, did you see that question for you? When you
No.
mentored me, that's a Dawn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she had a question for you. Excitement built my confidence. You see, she gave
No,
me
it
a
was,
Oh
just
my
a, it was just a
gosh.
comment. It was just a nicety.
Oh, thank you, Dawn. You know, I didn't know that I mentored you. So, but no, Dawn came in, first time I met her. She was just, I kept meeting her in the halls of USDA on this project and that project. And it was like, boy, I need to learn from this woman. So what a powerhouse. But thank you, Dawn. Nice comment. And now she's the leader in the association, a role model for many.
Well, as we getting close to 1 o'clock, I want to be mindful for your time. This has been a wonderful experience for me as a facilitator to learn from so many exciting, but also very different perspectives. It really enriched my experience and my background working with others. For some of you listening, if you would like to be our future storytellers, now you see how it goes. Please sign up, put your name and email in the chat box. Just to say I will be happy to tell my story. Or if you want to follow up with our storytellers, just also put your contact information in there and tell us who you like to connect with, and we'll be happy to make the connection for you. On behalf of the AAEA Mentoring Committee, I really appreciate and thank our presenters today. Before the holiday season, at the end of the semester time, everybody is crunching something right now, but you actually took some time to be so generous and come meet with us. This is absolutely fantastic. The recording will be cleaned up and posted on AAEA website. I will write my blog, and I promise I'll finish my blog, all of them this time. It will go with the AAEA recording with the simplified version, so everybody can share, and please share with others too. Without any further ado, thank you again for your time being here with us. Have a wonderful and a safe holiday. We look forward to seeing you again very soon in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Bye-bye.
Kath.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.